So in the last program, we talked about leadership perceptions. So we found that each one of us carried very different ideas about who is a good leader. And we also looked at the differences between a leader and a manager. We also found that one of the fundamental things we all need to do is to understand the evolving new meaning of a global leadership. So when you're talking about anything global, we are talking about things which are standardized, which are the same, which are more or less common across countries, across various continents. So that is the meaning of the name global. So when we looked at the global leadership, we realized that it transcends cultures, it goes beyond various nations. So we were trying to understand that first thing one need to do in this process of understanding of a global leadership is to make oneself understand one's own perceptions about leadership and then move beyond and evolve a common leadership pattern. Next, we went on to the understanding of how our role perceptions have evolved. The role perceptions that we have evolved is due to one very strong phenomenon known as role modeling. So this role modeling happens at various stages of life. It happens from the family, from your parents, from your father, from your mother, and then it happens during the collegiate stage from the teachers you meet and from the most significant persons you meet. And the third important thing it happens for a person who is in a career life is when he comes across his own bosses, and some of them become their very strong role models. These are the experiential role models which have a great impact in your behavior, in your emotive behavior, in your behavior that you carry on in your ordinary day-to-day life. Then there are role models which people gather from reading, from what they read, from what they learn from organizations, from what they learn from their own institutions of education. Many of them are cognitive models. So you read autobiographies, you read biographies, you read stories, you read about various leaders who have been successful, and these thought processes give you a very strong background of emotive content of new role models that each one of us would like to be. So the whole evolution of any role modeling that we do in our job is probably a combination of these two. So after role modeling, we looked at what is the fundamental base or the fundamental stratum from which any action takes place. So we talked about intent. We talked about intent as that base which pushes any person to go in a certain path. And then we talked about intents on varieties of things. Intents to be popular, to be famous, to be this, to be that. Then we looked at a very important concept called strategic intent. So when you are talking about strategic intent, it is an intent channelized in a particular domain, in a particular arena, in a particular area. And this strategic intent is extremely closely related to what you are, what you want to be. More than what you are, it is in the becoming realms of what you want to be. And on this we looked at some of the stories, we looked at some of the phenomenon through which many people have gathered their strength and persisted with themselves. So the mool or the fundamental of any one of the leadership processes is a very strong intent. Having covered this, we then talked about the scenario in the Indian phenomena today. So when you looked at the leadership for the next 5 years or next 10 years, three very strong things emerged. One is all industries need to be extremely cost competitive and quality competitive. The global cost realities. Why is anybody coming to India today? India is becoming a destination where people can offer the same quality at a very competitive rate. And then we talked about technology. Wherever we have found that people have imported technology one to one, we find that we are not able to offer the cost competitiveness to the world. The reason being, the cost of technology is the same, our productivity is less, so where do we stand? So we talked about innovative ways of bringing a technology which is much more contextual to the type of ethos that we have. Then the third most important thing is, when we are talking about a global scenario, when you are talking about being in the midst of varieties of cultures, we realize that at leadership level we need to develop a very strong cross-cultural orientation and a cross-cultural sensitivity, an understanding of different cultures, an understanding of their thought processes, an understanding of what motivates nations to move from one to the other. Without this understanding, any leadership form or any leadership processes will have a great lacuna, especially when they want to get into a global scenario. And a very strong bottom line orientation. Ultimately one is seeing in the international and the global field, gone are the days when you looked at 3 years and 4 years. The reality is today leadership processes and leadership successes are measured in quarters. If you are not successful in one quarter, you may have to find probably a different place in the next quarter. So the strategic thinking, or thinking that spans much beyond today, need to also accommodate a very strong thinking and a very strong reality that it needs to fit into very important short-term goals of a quarter.